They called me a gold digger, a nobody, a woman who got lucky. For 3 long years, I smiled in silence while my husband's family treated me like an inconvenience, an embarrassing footnote in their perfect world. But tonight, under the chandeliers of London's most prestigious charity gala, I'm about to show them exactly who I am. And trust me, no one in this room is prepared. My name is Clara Whitford, and for the last 3 years, I've been married to Edward Hawthorne. Yes, that Hawthorne, from the Hawthorne real estate dynasty, the surname plastered across half the city's luxury developments. But before we get to the moment everything burned to the ground, let me tell you how we got here.
If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in people who still step up when the world turns away, take a moment to like, comment, and share this video. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what you're about to see will restore your faith in humanity. We'd love to know, where are you watching from? Comment below with your country and region, and let us celebrate the kindness that connects us all. Now, let's begin.
There's something no one warns you about when you marry into a wealthy family. They don't just judge your bank account. They dissect your entire existence under a microscope until they find reasons to feel superior. I grew up in a tiny seaside town on the English coast. A place so small that tourists often drove straight through without realizing. My parents ran a hardware shop that had been in the family for 2 generations. Our biggest luxury was takeaway fish and chips on Friday nights. After university, I became a librarian, because books were my refuge, my companions, and my gateway into worlds bigger than my old town. I wanted to help others find the stories that could change their lives. It was simple, honest, beautiful. But to the Hawthornes, my life before Edward might as well have been invisible. To them, I wasn't just not enough. I wasn't anything at all. When Edward and I met at a small cafe near the Kensington Library, he was just a charming man who had forgotten his wallet and promised to come back to pay for his coffee. He didn't mention private jets or penthouses. He didn't introduce himself as the heir to a property empire. We fell in love over conversations about our favorite authors, not over his family's assets. But the moment I stepped into his world, everything changed. I became the outsider, the interloper, the woman who had somehow snagged their golden boy. Every family dinner felt like a play where everyone knew the script except me. They talked about polo tournaments, ski weekends in St. Moritz, and charity events that cost more than what most people made in a year. And I sat there, smiling politely in my simple dresses from department stores. They looked at me the way posh Londoners look at street pigeons. Tolerated, but never welcome. The Hawthorne Vipers. The matriarch, Victoria Hawthorne, had perfected the art of polite cruelty. She never raised her voice, she didn't need to. Her words carried daggers wrapped in silk. Last month, at her wedding anniversary dinner, she introduced me to her friends like this. This is Edward's wife, Clara. She works at the local library. Isn't that just adorable? The way she said adorable felt like she was talking about a child who collected rocks in jam jars. Then there was Edward's sister, Felicity, who used me as her personal entertainment. Oh, Clara, do tell us about your cute little book club. Oh, how refreshing that you still buy regular shampoo. So authentic. Everyone laughed like she was the cleverest woman alive. I learned to swallow the insults with a smile, to nod politely, to say thank you when Victoria made comments about my simplistic lifestyle. They thought my silence was stupidity, my quietness, weakness. They were wrong. I wasn't quiet because I had nothing to say. I was quiet because I was learning, watching, remembering every slight. Edward saw it. He always saw it. He squeezed my hand under the table, or changed the subject, but he never confronted them. I understood why. But understanding doesn't make the hurt any softer. Every year, the Hawthorne Foundation hosted one of London's most awaited charity galas. Last week, while organizing seating arrangements, Victoria discussed with Felicity, loud enough for me to hear, whether I should even attend. She'll embarrass us in front of important people, Victoria said. You know how she dresses. And how she talks about her little library projects. Tell her the dress code is optional formal, Felicity suggested with a cruel giggle. Maybe she'll get the hint and stay home. When Edward mentioned the gala at dinner, the tension could have been sliced with a knife. The gala is next Saturday, he said cautiously. Clara, you'll need something formal. Of course she'll attend, he added. But his voice sounded like he was asking for permission. Victoria smiled, tight and controlled. Well, perhaps Clara could use some assistance choosing her attire. We want everyone to feel comfortable. Translation. We don't trust you not to embarrass us. On the night of the gala, I chose a midnight blue gown, elegant but understated. My jewelry was subtle, antique pieces that looked simple but held more history than anyone in that ballroom could imagine. When I saw my reflection, I saw exactly what I intended to be. A woman who belonged anywhere, but needed approval from no one. The moment we entered the grand ballroom, Victoria spotted us. Her gaze swept over me like a scanner looking for flaws. She nodded, satisfied. Clara, darling. How lovely. Not too much. Not too little. Just as it should be. It was meant to be a compliment. It felt like being graded. The evening went as expected. Victoria introduced me with her favorite script. This is Edward's wife, Clara. She works at our local library. So meaningful, truly. That pause before meaningful said everything. Soon Felicity dragged me toward an older couple. Clara, meet the Prestons, she said. They basically own half of Mayfaire's commercial buildings. Mrs. Preston smiled warmly, the way wealthy women smile when they're being charitable. How wonderful that you work with books. It must be so peaceful. So simple. Her husband added. And quite the upgrade from your little coastal town, I'd imagine. You must feel eternally grateful to Edward for bringing you into our world. Grateful. As if I were a rescued pet. I smiled and said softly, oh, I'm very grateful. Though perhaps not for the reasons you imagine. Something in my tone made Edward glance at me from across the room. During dinner, I was placed far from the main tables. Then came the speeches. When Charles Preston took the microphone, I sensed the arrogance building like a storm. He spoke about upholding standards, about keeping leadership of foundations in the hands of those who understood legacy. It is crucial, he concluded, that some people know their place. He looked right at me. When he returned to sit near me, he said, it's refreshing to see young people like you who understand humility. I set down my glass. You're right about one thing, I said, quiet, but clear enough for nearby tables to hear. I should never forget where I come from. And I think it's time everyone here knows exactly where that is. Conversation died. Edward froze. The reveal. I want to thank you all, I said, rising slowly, for the lessons you've taught me over these last 3 years. You've shown me who you are, how you treat people you believe are beneath you, and what you truly value. Preston frowned. I'm not sure what you're implying, young lady. Oh, I think you are, I said, my voice strengthening. You've spent the entire night explaining how grateful I should be, how I should know my place, how I clearly married above my station. But what you've never bothered to do, I continued, letting my gaze sweep the room, is ask the most important question. A hush fell so thick you could hear the clink of ice in a glass. You never asked who my family is. The silence was electric. My maiden name, I said, is Fairborn. Gasps rippled across the room. The Fairborn name was legendary in the UK's philanthropic sphere. Old money, older influence, and far more powerful than the Hawthorns ever were. That's impossible, Felicity whispered. My great-grandfather founded the Fairborn Literacy Trust in 1902, I continued calmly. For over a century, we've funded educational programs, public libraries, and literacy initiatives across Britain. And the Hawthorn Foundation, the one you're celebrating tonight, receives substantial annual funding from my family. I let the information sink in. Victoria's face morphed from disbelief, to dread, to frantic calculation. Edward stared at me like he'd never really seen me until that moment. "Clara," he whispered, voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell me?" There was pain in his voice, but also awe. "Because I needed to know if you could love Clara the librarian," I said, looking directly into his eyes. "Not Clara the heiress. I've seen too many relationships twisted by money. I needed to know we were real." I turned back to the crowd. I chose to work in a library not because it was my only option, but because books matter to me. Education matters. People matter. Charles Preston finally recovered enough to speak. "Even if what you say is true, you should have disclosed your background before entering our world." I laughed softly. "And demand respect because of my bank account instead of my character? That's the difference between us. You've all shown me exactly who you are when you believe someone has nothing to offer you. Now let me show you who I am." I pulled out my phone. "Hello, James," I said when my solicitor answered. "Draft the withdrawal letter. The Fairborn Trust will be ending its support of the Hawthorne Foundation effective immediately." The room erupted in whispers. Victoria stepped forward, panicked. "Clara, please, there's been a misunderstanding." "It's not a misunderstanding," I replied. "It's a consequence." The turning point. Edward approached me, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw him truly stand up. "Clara," he said loudly enough for all to hear, "I owe you an apology. I should have defended you from the beginning. Anyone who disrespects my wife disrespects me." Victoria looked shattered. "Edward, you cannot turn against your own family." "She chose me," Edward said, "when she could have had anyone. She loved me when she thought I was just a man who forgot his wallet. All she's ever done is act with integrity. Can any of you say the same?" No one answered. They didn't need to. Edward offered me his arm. I took it. We walked toward the exit together. At the doorway, I turned back one last time. My grandmother always said that true power isn't in making others feel small, it's in lifting them up. Tonight, you showed me exactly who you are. I hope you remember this feeling the next time you're tempted to judge someone by their appearance. Outside, the cool London air hit my face like freedom. Not because I had revealed my secret. Not because they finally saw me. But because I had finally chosen myself.
Moral of the story. True value isn't measured by fortune, but by integrity. Those who judge others based on appearances expose nothing but the emptiness of their own character. And sometimes, the person they dismiss as insignificant is the one who holds the quiet, unshakable power they will never understand. Which part of this story touched you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our next emotional stories.